Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. Today is October 29th, 2024. This is episode 296. We are creeping up on 300 episodes very quickly here after doing this podcast for many years. More than a minute, I will say. I am your host, Amy Dingman, coming to you from Clucky Dickens Farm in central Minnesota. That is a 5-acre homestead that sits on a dead-end dirt road, and it is glorious. If you're new to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, welcome. If you are not new, welcome. Here on the podcast, sometimes we talk about homesteading stuff because that's my life, but sometimes we also just talk about life stuff because that's my life as well. And that's okay because it doesn't matter where we live or what kinds of skills we're trying to learn. We're all just trying to build the best life we can, right? What is today's topic? Well, my friends, as I sit here, we are 1 week away from Election Day. And what we're going to talk about today is 7 things that you can focus on instead of the election. Now, maybe it depends where you are. Maybe it depends who you are, who you're hanging out with. But there's some people that are just getting all crazy and all freaking out about this election that's going to be happening next week, which is, of course, the most important election of our life, which is what they happen to say every single 4 years, if you haven't caught on to that. So today, we're not talking about the election. We are talking about 7 things to focus on instead of the election. And these are going to be things that I think are real important and are going to direct your life a little bit more than whoever ends up getting elected next week. But before we get to that, what has been happening on the Lifestead? Well, this week is the week that I get to find out if my rabbits were bred at the beginning of this month. Will there be kits? Will there be baby rabbits this week? Or will we be rebreeding? We will find out if the meat rabbit system is started or if we have to try again. So I will let you know how that goes. What else has been happening on the Lifestead? Well, you know, I have been doing this for more than a minute, and you think that I would have basic things figured out, or I shouldn't say basic things, but I should say things that I've been doing forever. You would think that I wouldn't forget because I have been doing them forever. But we have 2 barns here on the homestead. We have the big barn and the little barn. And for the first time, I have egg birds in both the big barn and the little barn. All of the egg birds were supposed to move to the little barn this year. That didn't happen. Long story. It will definitely happen next year. But so I have the egg birds divided. Okay, the egg birds that are in the little barn coop are newer. They just hatched out this year. They started laying a couple months ago. It's wonderful. The birds in the big barn are older, have been laying for a few years. So recently, I have noticed that the egg birds in the little barn, the younger ones, they were laying so good. And now they're not laying. I mean, we were getting 7, 8, 9 eggs a day from these 9 hens, right? And now we're getting like 2. And I'm like, come on, you guys. The big barn chicken coop is hardly giving us any eggs at all because they're going through a serious molt right now. So they're not laying a lot of eggs. But the little birds, I was like, come on, guys, come on, gals. Where are these eggs? Come on. Now, we all know, or we should know, that chickens stop laying as often when the days get shorter, right? And if you want to prevent that, if you want to continue to get eggs through the winter, which we do, you need to give them supplemental light. And so we always have. That's a personal choice. Some people are against that. Some people are for it. I am of the opinion that if you're going to live here and I'm going to feed you, you're gonna do something for me. And so I'm wondering, like, how come I'm not getting any eggs from this little barn, y'all? I haven't turned on a light yet. It just like smacked me upside the head the other day. I'm like, wait a second. Of course they're not laying. They don't have their extra light on. So they can keep laying as these days get shorter and shorter and shorter and darker and darker and darker. How is it that we forget things that we have always done? I'm not new to this, y'all. I have been here on the homestead since 2011. And we even had chickens for 2 years before that. Isn't that crazy? We just forget things. All of a sudden, we just forget these things we've always known. What else is happening here on the homestead? I have been going back and listening to old episodes of the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, so that has been fun. It's always interesting to go back and hear, like, okay, where were we as a world 18 months ago, 4 years ago? Where was I as a person 18 months ago, 4 years ago? It's just very interesting because it's almost like having a little life journal in little audio snippets. So that's kind of fun. I am going back right now and listening to like episodes 260s, 270s, and those are very relevant to life right now. So if you're looking for something to fill your time and put something in your ears, go back and listen to some of those episodes. There's good stuff back there. Just a reminder that the Farmish Papers, my snail mail newsletter, is going through a little bit of a change. That's going to be coming in 2025. Instead of it being one monthly newsletter, I'm going to have 3 quarterly newsletters that if you subscribe to all 3, you will still end up getting a monthly newsletter. I've got different topics for those 3 different quarterly newsletters. So if you want to get on an interest list for that, because that's how I'm going to be sending out subscription information, please go to my website, farmishkindoflife.com. Look for the menu tab that says Snail Mail Newsletters. Otherwise, just go to the show notes, and if I remember to put a link in there, you will find it in there. The last thing that I want to let you know is that if you are listening to this on YouTube, I have a potential change coming up in the near future. I have been surveying some people, and I have been considering possibly making this podcast on YouTube as a video upload instead of just an audio upload. I'm not going to do it as a live stream. I'm going to do it as a recorded thing, but there are people out there that listen to the podcast in their ears on Spotify or wherever they're listening. There are also people who listen on YouTube, and YouTube is a video platform, right? When I upload this to YouTube, I just do an audio file with a static picture, and some people just, play it in the background. It has occurred to me through conversations with various people that sometimes it's just nice to see the person talking. Sometimes it's nice to have those visual cues, even if it's not a fancy video with a lot of editing. Sometimes it's just nice to see the person who's talking. And so I'm considering, maybe in the month of November, starting to try out doing this as a video podcast. So it won't be anything fancy, but it will give you something to look at other than a static picture. So we'll see how that goes. If you have any thoughts on that in the next week, drop me a line, amy@afarmishkindoflife.com, or put a comment in the YouTube video. I use that term loosely right now for this. And let me know what you're thinking. Would it be nice to see my silliness as I am doing this podcast, or are you good with just playing it in the background as noise? Ultimately, you'll probably find out next week or the week after what I decided to do. All right. With that, let's head over to the main topic and talk about 7 things that we can focus on right now instead of the election. Every time election day comes around, it makes me think about elementary school, where I was involved in an election. I think it was like 4th grade class president or something, I think. And I decided that I was going to run, and there's other people who decided they were going to run. And I don't know what this got you. Like, I don't know what class president, it was just like a title, right? I don't know that you were actually in charge of anything. But so I decided I was going to run. And at home, we made these Vote for Amy stickers, right? So this was late 80s. Okay, so this is the technology we're dealing with, right? So I had silver sticker paper at home. And so we cut out circles and we wrote with some kind of marker on there, Vote for Amy. And then I was like, oh, this can be so great. And so I took this batch of stickers to school and I passed them out to my classmates, right? And I was so excited. But within an hour, I found out that classmates had figured out that the marker on these stickers that we'd made could be wiped off. And they could write whatever they wanted on this sticker. So there were some people that wore these beautiful stickers that said Vote for Amy. But there were other people that wiped off the sticker and wrote Vote for whoever else or whatever they wanted to write on the sticker. So that was a learning experience, right? People are ruthless in elections, aren't they? The other thing that I remember from that class election was that while we were doing our speeches, and convincing people why they should vote for each of us for class president, one of my opponents got up and said that if you voted for him, he would make sure that we had chocolate milk for lunch every single day. Every single day. Now, that was a big deal to fourth graders because we didn't get the option of chocolate milk every day. Chocolate milk was like only on Fridays or only on special days. I don't remember. This was a long time ago, but I remember chocolate milk was a really big deal. And the whole thing was that if you voted for him, he would make sure that we had chocolate milk every single day. And I remember sitting there thinking, wait a second. The fourth grade class president has no control over what gets served for lunch. What is he talking about? And yet lots of people in the class were so excited that he was going to get them chocolate milk for lunch every single day. And for some reason, I always think about that experience every time we are headed to the polls. Now, I know that some of you listening are hardcore voters. I also know some of you do not vote. I also know some of you only vote in local elections and you choose to forego the bigger ones. I also know that the listeners of this audience come from various political beliefs and ideologies, and I think that's pretty awesome because that's real life. That shows that we have a real awesome group of people that are not all the same, and that's what makes it cool. So, having said all that, we're going to talk about all these other things that you can focus on instead of the election, because the election makes people crazy, right? It gets things just all chaotic and dramatic, right? So we're going to talk about stuff that you can focus on instead, and you're going to notice that there is a theme here to my list, and that theme is enhancing your self-reliance and reducing your dependence on outside systems. You're going to figure out that theme is things that contribute to your self-sufficiency. That theme is learning who is and isn't responsible for your security. So when the ish hits the fan or the world goes sideways and wonky or the wrong candidate wins, whoever that is, that only needs to affect you to a degree that you determine, right? So here's the list of other things to focus on that are not the election, things to think about that are productive and I think will actually move you forward. So here we go. Number 1, practical skills. Practical skills for everyday life. Canning, cooking from scratch, basic repairs, first aid, making use of what you have on hand. I want you to think about how you can take the things that you are doing every single day, things that come up in your life in regular, everyday situations, and how can you use them to reduce your dependence on outside systems? How can you use them to reduce the need for someone else to be in charge of part of your life? How can you reduce the need to be so concerned about what does or doesn't happen out there because you have it taken care of right here? That is something else to focus on right now. Number 2, something else you can focus on is financial independence and strategies to reach that. And sometimes when we talk about financial stuff, sometimes it's about figuring out how to make more money to add to your mason jar, right? And sometimes it's about saving money so not as much comes out of your mason jar. And I know that the last few years have been really tough for a lot of folks because we are feeling the sting at the grocery store. Our paychecks are not stretching as far as they used to, right? But let's be honest, at the same time, Taylor Swift is still selling out concerts. And I checked this, you guys. One ticket to her concert, even in the cheap seats, is more than my monthly mortgage payment. And I'm saying that because I want y'all to know it's not bad enough for enough people yet. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because then I feel like I'm going to get spicy, and this whole podcast episode is going to just go sideways. So, all right. So just keep that in your mind. When everybody's talking about how rough it is, there are still people out there buying $1,400 tickets, $4,000 tickets to a concert. Instead of focusing on the election, explore ways to create financial stability. Keep looking into side hustles. Keep looking into budgeting. Invest in skills or resources that contribute to your self-sufficiency. And generally, in the long run, they will save you money. They might not save you money right up front. You might not be in a position where you can take a certain thing on. But when you're at the point when you can take that on, eventually it's going to probably save you money in the long run. Self-sufficiency does that. Make a plan for how those things are going to happen. Think about, what is one financial goal you want to work on? Selling eggs from your chickens? Starting a pop-up baked goods stand? Paying off one credit card bill? Saving $100 this month? Eliminating 3 or 4 or 5 subscription services that you don't actually use? Changing the way that you buy groceries or the place you buy groceries? Maybe you shop less often, or maybe you shop online. Whatever is the way that works best for where you live that's going to save you money. Those are things to think about, to dream about, to plan about, and they are way more productive than worrying about the election. Okay? Number 3, create sustainable food sources. Food security is so important. Regardless of the political climate, regardless of what is happening in Washington, D.C., food security is so important. It doesn't matter who's running for office. It doesn't matter who gets voted in. Food security is so important. And I'm talking about the food that is in your house or on your property and is accessible to you that you have some kind of control over. That is really, really important. Now, we have been on our homestead here since 2011. So obviously, we've had a lot of time to build a lot of things. We've also had time to figure out what doesn't work. We've also had time to scale back from what we once thought we needed and then realize we didn't. It takes time to figure that out. It takes time to create sustainable food sources, which is why instead of worrying about the election, you should be thinking about how you can start, even in a very, very, very small way, to take control of some of how you're getting the food that goes into your body. Whether you're going to grow some of it, raise some of it, forage for some of it, trade for some of it, support someone else who is growing or raising or foraging for it. That was a mouthful. That is so much more productive to focus on than the election and the drama surrounding it. Number 4, something else you can think about other than the election is emergency preparedness. We've got a lot of people running around like chickens with their heads cut off, like this election and everything surrounding it is some kind of emergency. It's not an emergency, okay? So let's maybe instead think on how to deal with actual emergencies. We've had some disastrous weather stuff going on this year, right? And we've had some pretty crazy economic downturns. People are dealing with actual emergencies in their lives, okay? What are the supplies you should have to be able to deal with that? What are the skills you should have in order to deal with those situations? That stuff has nothing to do with who you're voting for, if anyone. And it has everything to do with you. Because as we have learned in several recent situations, when the ish hits the fan and the world goes sideways, you are not calling up the president for help. It's you and your people and what you've prepared for and what you know how to do. So what do you need to get better at? Where are the holes in your systems? And I'm not coming at this like Rambo or tactical person, right? If you've been here a while, you know I've got some pretty chill and realistic episodes about prepping. I'll try to remember to stick those in the show notes. But if thinking about patching the holes in your system or what kinds of survival or prepping things you could beef up gives you something more productive to do than get anxious or angry about an election, I am all for that. I think that is a much better use of your time and your attention. Number 5, something else to think about other than the election is lifelong learning, fostering lifelong learning. So many of us come to homesteading, or whatever you want to call this life, not having any clue what we're doing. And we have to learn our way through it. I did not grow up as a homesteader. I did not grow up on a farm. Neither did my husband. A lot of you did not either. But you came to this lifestyle and you're like, hey, I want to do this. And you had to learn everything, right? You are punting your way through it. Knowledge empowers self-reliance. It empowers adaptability and creativity. I'm a huge fan of continuous learning. I don't think you should ever stop learning, right? And the really great thing is that in 2024, there are so many ways to do it now. We have access to so much information. When I was little and I wanted to know something, I had to go to the library. And I had to hope that the book that I wanted was there. And then I checked it out for a week and I had to bring it back. Like, if you sit and think about how we used to learn stuff and how much more time it took, you had to find somebody in person or on the phone, or like you had to talk to these people. And it was a process. It took so much longer. And now, oh my gosh, like we are overwhelmed with information. It is so easy to get information. Take advantage of that and use it in a productive way. We've got workshops. We've got online courses. We've got a gazillion books, more coming out every single day. It is so easy to publish a book. We've got Facebook groups. We've got other people in our area. We've got podcasts, YouTube channels. The information is right there. And it's so easily accessible now in ways that people could not do even 25 years ago. So what do you want to learn? What do you want to know about? What do you want to learn how to do? And I don't care if it is something super useful and practical or if it is something completely off the wall. Anything is better for your brain at this point than hyper-focusing on an election that you honestly have zero individual control over. You vote or don't vote, and then go do something else. You don't have any individual control over what's going to happen. Make your choice and move on and do something productive. Number 6, something else that you can focus on, mental health. Chaotic times can be such a huge stressor on mental health. And if we are living in stressful times, on the cusp of the most important election of our lives, how do we remedy that? I mean, and this may depend where you are and who you're hanging out with and what you're doing online. Like, I don't know. But do you feel the insanity and the stress and the desperation right now? How do we sit in the midst of a world that is caught up in that kind of anxiety, that anxiety that's stuck right at the top of your throat? You know, you ever felt that kind of anxiety? There are people right now that is where they are. And you may not be that person, but you may be around those kind of people, right? So like you feel it, you can sense it. Our mental health is so important. And when you feel yourself at that breaking point, either because of what's going on in the world or how people are dealing with what's going on in the world, what do? And sometimes that breaking point is anxiety. Sometimes it comes out as anger. Sometimes it comes out as apathy. It just depends who you are. But what do? Do you know what helps you? Do you have a toolbox that you can work from when it comes to dealing with stress in the middle of chaos, especially chaos that you have zero control over? Meaning you're not the one in charge of changing what's going on out there because it's too big for you. What do? Do you know how to deal with that? That is something to think about right now. Productive ways to deal with that instead of freaking out about an election you can't control. Number 7. And if I was going to say there's one that's most important, I guess I would say it's this one, but maybe it's just because I'm biased. It would be building community. I talk a lot about community here on this podcast. If you have been here for any amount of time at all, you know I am big on community. I'm big on taking care of yourself so you can then help take care of your community, whatever you consider that to be. Here is the reality. Your family and friends and the community that you are a part of are a bigger part of your life than whoever gets elected. And your family and your friends and your community will be in your life a lot longer than whoever gets elected. And I know some of you will say, well, if so-and-so gets elected, this is what's going to happen and life is going to get harder. And that could be true. But I think the logical conclusion to draw from that is that when life gets harder, who do you have? The president does not know your name, but your friends and your family and your community does. So this is exactly the time to focus on keeping those relationships functional and strong and positive. And if you are someone who feels like you don't have a community, it is time to get out there and do the hard work of building one. That should literally be your focus right now, because as I have said in recent podcast episode, it takes time to build a community, and it is not easy to build a community. It takes time. So focus on that instead of whoever is going to get voted in a week, which we probably won't know because they're probably going to have drama surrounding the election and we won't know right away, right? I don't know. That's just my gut feeling. So those are my thoughts. Those are my 7 things. I mean, there's lots of other things you can think about. Those are 7 things that you can think about other than worrying about the election, freaking out about the election, and hyper-focusing on the election. And the interesting thing will be if you come back and listen to this podcast episode in a month or 6 months, or I don't know, because some folks are so wrapped up in this election and who's going to win and what's going to happen if candidate A, B, C, D, E, F wins. And if that's you, I invite you to come back and listen to this episode and see, regarding whoever is elected, how much actually changed in your life. And maybe compare that to how any of the other things in this episode will or could actually change your life. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I always appreciate you guys coming back and giving me 20 or 30 minutes of your precious time, because ain't none of us got enough of it. Have an awesome week, you guys, and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com. Find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.